This is Ronald Read, a janitor who died with an $8 million secret. When he passed away in June 2014, his story shocked the world. Because Ronald hid something even his family didn't know. He wasn't born into money, he grew up on a poor farm, finished only high school, and spent his life sweeping floors for minimum wage. And yet, somehow, he turned a $22,000 a year janitor's salary into an $8 million fortune. Here's exactly how he did it. The most important thing Ronald understood was a secret no school ever taught him. The simple formula for building wealth. It comes down to this: how much money you have coming in minus how much money you have going out. In other words, income minus expenses equals cash flow. If your cash flow is positive, you've got money left over. If it's negative, you're sliding into debt. In the psychology of money, Morgan Housel shares a powerful truth. Real wealth is the money you don't spend. And even saving just 5% more of your income could let you retire years earlier. Let's break it down. Say you make $5,000 a month. If your expenses are also $5,000, or worse, even more, your cash flow is zero or negative. That means you'll never be financially free. You'll have to work for the rest of your life. Unless you're a trust fund baby, then you can forget what I just said. But what if your cash flow is $5,000 and your expenses are zero? If you could somehow keep living with no expenses, you'd be financially free right now. Sounds ridiculous? Exactly. And that's the point. Most people fall somewhere between $0 and $5,000 in expenses. And if you keep a positive cash flow, even a small one, you can start saving, investing, and eventually make your money work for you. When your money earns enough to cover your lifestyle, that's when you've made it. Here's the math. If you earn $65,000 a year and save 10%, that's $6,500. You could reach financial freedom in 51.4 years, but bump that savings rate to 15%, and you cut that time down to 42.8 years. Just 5% more effort, and you save yourself over 8 years of work. Meanwhile, the average American spends nearly $18,000 a year on non-essentials. That's thousands burned on things like $173 a month on takeout. Really? Do you need to pay that much just to have someone else cook your dinner? There's one number that reveals whether you're on track to become a millionaire by age 65. How much you've saved so far. It's a simple checkpoint, but it can save you from financial regret later. Here's the reality. If you start saving at age 20, you only need to put aside $204 a month to retire a millionaire by 65. Wait until 30, and that number jumps to $443 a month. Start at 40, it's $1,030 a month. And if you wait until 50, you'll need to save $2,795 a month just to hit the same goal. Like most things in life, the earlier you start, the easier it gets. That's the magic of time and compound growth. Now, of course, this is based on a few key assumptions. You're starting with zero savings. Your investments grow at 7% per year. You increase your monthly savings by 2% each year to keep up with inflation. So if you start with $100 a month today, next year, that becomes $102 a month, and it keeps going up from there. Sure, real life comes with twists and surprises, but one rule never changes: the sooner you start saving, the better your future will look. What's the best way to save money? Here's what works. And yeah, this might ruffle some feathers. Stop budgeting. Stop tracking every little expense. Sounds crazy? Hear me out. Do you really think wealthy people sit around updating Excel spreadsheets? May 15th, 2 avocado smoothies, $20.80. Of course not. Now, don't get it twisted, budgeting still matters, especially if you struggle with overspending or financial stability. But here's what actually works for me, and it's a strategy a lot of wealthy people quietly use: auto allocation. Every month, my paycheck lands in my checking account automatically. From there, I automatically transfer my savings into a savings account, and my spending money into a separate spending account. That spending account covers my fixed bills, living expenses, everything. Here's the trick. Because I know my fixed expenses, I can set clear targets for food, entertainment, travel, shopping, whatever. And by the end of the month, I know exactly how much I didn't spend, because it's sitting right there in my spending account. That leftover money, I can invest it, save it, or roll it over for next month. This automation method isn't for everyone, but here's the truth. The simpler your system, the more likely you are to actually stick with it. And when it comes to personal finance, simple beats perfect every time. Let's talk about income. And this probably isn't what you're expecting. In Rich Habits, Tom Corley shared a powerful insight. More than 75% of millionaires didn't come from money. They were self-made, just like Ronald Read, But there's one thing they nearly all had in common, and even the IRS confirmed it. They built multiple income streams, usually between 3 and 7. Now, Ronald Read, he had 2 main income sources. One was his janitor job, the one everyone knew about. The other, that second income source, is what quietly transformed his future. And we'll reveal that in just a bit. Why does this matter? First, you're not trapped by a single paycheck. Most people think their full-time job is secure, until they hear those 2 words, "You're fired!" When that happens, game over, unless you've got other income streams. Second, you can supercharge your cash flow. If your monthly expenses are $3,000, you might cut back to $2,000, but there's only so much you can cut before you're living on instant ramen and water. On the flip side, if you make even $100 more a week, that extra cash can change everything. So how do you earn more? Pick up some overtime, ask for a raise, upgrade your skills for a better job, or do what I did when I was working full-time, start a side hustle. Side hustles are game changers. This YouTube channel, it started as a side hustle in 2023, and with some luck and hard work, maybe it'll grow into a full-time career someday. Sure, it might take a few extra hours a week, but trust me, it's worth every second. Ronald Read didn't build his multi-million-dollar fortune just by mastering the cash flow formula. He had one more secret, the kind that most people never figure out. And when he passed away, the truth finally surfaced. Not even his closest family knew. Ronald had been quietly investing in about 95 different stocks over his lifetime. 95. And when people dug through his portfolio, they noticed something unusual. There was a clear pattern, a common thread running through every stock he owned. We'll get to that, but here's what you need to know first. Investing your positive cash flow isn't optional. It's the difference between growing rich or staying stuck. But there's a catch. You have to invest the right way. Let's clear up the biggest myth right now, day trading. It's plastered all over TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. People acting like Wall Street pros, staring at charts, buying, selling, flipping stocks all day long, thinking they've hacked the system. But they won't tell you this. 90% of day traders lose money. And Ronald? He didn't fall for the hype. Instead, he was a long-term investor who focused on fundamentals. He studied companies inside and out, looked at their intrinsic value, and made sure each investment made sense both in numbers and in real life. So no, he wasn't throwing his life savings into meme stocks like GameStop or AMC, hoping for a quick flip. He played the long game, and that, more than anything, is what built his quiet fortune. There's one investing mistake that nearly everyone makes, and it can cost you hundreds, even thousands, over a lifetime. But first, let me tell you a story. Centuries ago in ancient China, there was an emperor who discovered the game of chess. He was so impressed by its brilliance, he offered the game's inventor one wish, anything he wanted. The inventor's request seemed simple. All he wanted was rice. 1 grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, and so on, doubling on each square, all the way to the 64th. The emperor laughed. He thought it was a silly request. But that promise, it ended his entire dynasty. By the 30th square, the emperor owed over 1 billion grains of rice. By the 64th square, he owed 18 quintillion grains. It bankrupted the entire kingdom. That, right there, is the power of compounding. And it's exactly what Ronald Read did. He didn't just invest a little here and there, he invested for the long term, letting his money grow and compound for decades. Every 2 weeks, when his janitor paycheck came in, he'd quietly add more to his investments. Here's how it works. If you save $1,000 in year 1 and earn 10% interest, you make $100. In year 2, you earn $110, because now your money is $1,100. Year 3, your interest is $121. Over time, you start earning interest on your savings and the interest you've already earned. And if you plot this on a graph, you don't see a straight line. You see an exponential curve. That's why Albert Einstein called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. And it's how 99% of Warren Buffett's wealth was built after his 50th birthday. When The Psychology of Money was written, Buffett's net worth was $84.5 billion. But $84.2 billion of that came after he turned 50. Why? Because Buffett started investing when he was 10 years old. By 30, he was already a millionaire. That's the power of time and the magic of compounding. What would you do if the stock market crashed 50% tomorrow? Most people's gut reaction?
I'm gonna sell. I don't want to lose money.
But Ronald Read, he lived through 11 market crashes and bear markets. And yet, he never sold. Why? Because he knew one simple truth. You can't time the market. His strategy? Keep investing for the long term, whether the market's up or down. Nonsense, right? Some TikTok trader says the market's gonna crash in 1 month and 5 days. So you think,
I'm waiting this out.
yeah, good luck with that. When you try to time the market, you're making two wild guesses. First, you guess when the market will bottom out and that you'll get out at exactly the right time. Second, you guess when it'll start going back up and that you'll jump back in at the perfect moment. And let's be honest, the odds are seriously against you. The University of Michigan ran a study on market returns from 1963 to 2004. They found that 96% of the positive returns came from just 0.85% of all trading days. Let that sink in. Miss those days, and you miss almost all the gains. Andrew Stotz, one of the world's top equity analysts, studied a 10-year period from 2005 to 2015. He ran countless simulations and found this. If you missed just the 10 best market days, you'd lose 66% of the gains you would have made by simply staying invested. Put simply, the market moves fast. When it goes up in a flash. And if your money's sitting on the sidelines, you risk missing some of the best days the market has to offer. So stop trying to time the market and stop panicking. Long-term investing beats fear every time. What fascinated me most was this. How did Ronald Read, a janitor, learn so much about investing? The answer, it's simpler than you think. He actively sought out knowledge. Ronald didn't wait for someone to teach him. He walked to his local library, he read the Wall Street Journal, and he soaked up whatever information he could for free. He even talked to neighbors who worked at banks, just to learn more about money and how the financial world worked. And here's the lesson. No one and nothing deserves a chunk of your money more than you do. The wealthy, they love to educate themselves because they know knowledge pays off big time down the line. And honestly, you're doing the same thing right now, watching this free video. Even when you buy a book for $10, you're not just buying paper and ink, you're downloading decades of hard-earned knowledge from someone for the price of a cheap latte. And that's the smartest investment you'll ever make. Nobody's perfect, not even Ronald Read. As smart as he was, some of his investments failed. One example, Lehman Brothers, which collapsed in the 2008 financial crisis. But despite the losses, Ronald didn't quit. Why? Because his investments were diversified. He didn't put all his money in one place, and that saved him. Here's the truth. We all make mistakes. Maybe you made a bad investment. Maybe you think you started too late. Maybe you splurged on something you really didn't need. It's okay, that's life. Don't give up. But there is one thing you absolutely can't afford to mess up. How you save your money. Because most people are doing it all wrong, and the banks aren't exactly rushing to tell you why. Click on this video to discover the 9 truths about money that banks definitely don't want you to know.